All right, I got a crazy question for you, maybe one that you've never thought of. Is Santa an angel? Now, look, before you just write me off and you say, absolutely not, it's not possible, that's heresy, let me ask you a question. Why not? Why is it not at least possible that Santa or the spirit of Santa is an angel? You know, when it comes to angels, for every one thing the Bible tells us, there's probably at least 1,000 things that it doesn't. Many things that we don't know about them, right? Now, what do know? Well, again, it's very little, but we know that they have different assignments, right? We know they're sent on specific missions by God Himself. And we know that they don't all look the same, right? We know that they're supernatural. They have supernatural abilities, right? To come and go. And most of the people that encountered them were, at least in the moment, afraid of them, right? Because they were different. There was something much different about them, and that was overwhelmingly obvious. And so, that's what we do know about them. All right. Now, when it comes to Santa, and could it be that Santa is an angel? I don't think the Bible gives us a basis to say definitively, definitely not. It's not possible, right? Actually, I would argue that the Bible gives us the framework to at least say that this idea falls within the realms of possibility. Look, I'm not saying, oh, this is the truth, right? This is certainty. This is doctrine. Look, this is just an idea. It's an idea that I think is worth considering. Every December, many Christians ask the familiar question, right? Does Santa distract from Jesus? Does he steal the spotlight? And look, I understand that concern. We want Jesus to remain the center of Christmas. That's the right heart to have. But before we decide what Santa is or isn't in this conversation, let's look at what the Bible actually says about angels, right? And actually about specific angels in the Christmas story. So if you remember, there was one specific angel named Gabriel that was sent to visit with Joseph and Mary. And then, of course, the shepherds, they saw a whole host of angels singing, just floating in the sky, right? And so these angels, do they distract from the presence of Jesus in the Christmas story? These supernatural beings, right, that are there, do they take away glory from God in the story? Is Gabriel competing with Jesus? No. He announced him. He prepared hearts. He added wonder and anticipation to the moment. His presence doesn't diminish Christ. So if God used a messenger and messengers then to prepare hearts for Christ, why are we so quick to assume today that any messenger-like presence is automatically a distraction? So look, let me be clear. I'm not saying that Santa's literally an angel. I'm not saying that there's a being in heaven flying around on a sleigh pulled by reindeer wearing a red suit. I'm not asking anyone to believe this as doctrine. What I am saying is this: biblically speaking, it is possible that what we call the spirit of Christmas reflects spiritual influence that God allows or even uses during the season that celebrates His Son. That idea is not unbiblical. It's consistent with what we already know. Hebrews, in fact, tells us angels are ministering spirits sent out to serve people. Scripture shows God sending spiritual messengers to announce seasons, stir hearts, encourage people, prepare the way for His work. Not every spiritual influence in the Bible is named, is it? No. In fact, most are not. Not every assignment is explained or fully explained. Absolutely not. So there's a ton of room for mystery in the Bible, right? God uses things all the time that are just things that you would never expect to accomplish His will. Even in our Christmas story, He used a pagan census from the Roman emperor, right, to bring Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem that would ultimately fulfill prophecy, right? Pagan astrologers came to worship Jesus. Guys, this is the Magi. These are the wise men. They were just pagan astrologers. And what did He use to guide them? A star, right? Nothing too supernatural about that. God has never limited Himself to just religious looking tools. So the idea that God might use a cultural symbol, right? To stir generosity and goodwill during the season that celebrates the incarnation of Jesus, that's completely consistent with the Bible. So what does this mean? What doesn't it mean? It doesn't mean, God forbid, we worship Santa, right? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that we're replacing Jesus. It simply means this. If something prepares hearts, awakens generosity, and fills the season with joy and goodwill during the celebration of Christ's birth, it doesn't compete with Jesus. It doesn't compete with him. It echoes him. So is Santa an angel? I don't know. I mean, literally an angel. I don't know. It's an interesting thought, right? I'm not saying anything definitively. But is it possible, at least possible, that what we call the spirit of Christmas reflects spiritual influence that God is sending and using to stir hearts during the season of his birth, his son's birth? Biblically speaking, I say yes. It is fully within the realms of possibility. Let's not put our God in a box, right? So the possibility exists. And when generosity and joy arise at Christmas, we don't have to fear it, right? No matter what face it has on it, no matter what symbol it takes, we can simply trace it back to the God who gives every good gift and rejoice that his light is still reaching people.